Hello, everyone, and welcome to Keeping Up with the Windsors. My name's Michelle.
And I'm Rachel.
And welcome. Today we have got our question of the week, and we thought we would choose maybe a controversial one, Rach. It's should the king live in Buckingham Palace? Now, obviously, we know that it's the official residence of the monarch, and as his role of head of state, he has these official residencies. I think one's Buckingham Palace, the other one's Windsor Castle, and also the Palace of Holyrood House in Edinburgh. But that's his official duties. But should he actually live there? And that's the question we're going to be asking ourselves today. Welcome, royal community. We are fangirls. We love the royal family here. So if you want to find out more, if you want to come along with us as we go around different places of interest with the royal family, subscribe to our channel because we've got lots of videos on the way. Rach, what are your thoughts about this question of the week?
I personally think he should live at Buckingham Palace. Like you said, it is the official residence of the monarch. Ever since Queen Victoria, there has always been a monarch that lives there. As we know, the palace is open during the summer months for visitors. If it's not been open full time for the rest of the year for visitors, I don't see why he shouldn't live at Buckingham Palace. Considering how big it is, how costly it is to run. We know that when he is in London, his official residence is Clarence House. And when the flag is at half-mast, and that signifies that the monarch is in residence, doesn't necessarily mean that he's at Buckingham Palace. It could mean that he's actually at Clarence House, which, if you've ever been to London, is just a stone throws away from Buckingham Palace. It's just up the side of the Mall. So I think personally he should. And yeah, I don't know. I think because he has lived at Clarence House for so long, and that's his home, isn't it? He's been there for years. But I just don't see why that wouldn't be the case now that the Queen is no longer with us. What do you think, Cheryl?
Well, I think you're right in the sense that he's been in Clarence House for a long time. He was the longest heir apparent in British monarch history. And actually, I have a very opposing view. I don't think he should be kind of pigeonholed into living in Buckingham Palace. I think having an official workplace is enough. And also, I think to myself, he's going to be residing possibly because this is going to be a Monday to Friday thing, possibly going to work in Buckingham Palace, then coming home and spending the evening and living at Clarence House. Well, we open up Clarence House sometimes in the summer, and then we open up Buckingham Palace. And I think it's probably going to have a bit more clout. The people want to go to Clarence House because the king not only works at Buckingham Palace, but also then would live in Clarence House. So maybe that would bring a lot more interest to two of the properties rather than just one. But that's kind of me with my business hat on. I think he's lived there for such a long time, and it's not as if he's completely disregarding Buckingham Palace or any of the other official residencies. He is having to go there for business. I say business as his role, as his duty. So yeah, I don't have an issue with him spending his free time. The king never really does have free time, does he? I'm just saying that as a little side note. But for me, it's not a big issue. I think as long as he goes to each of the official residencies at some point during his head of state duties, then I think that's enough. And even if I think of the Palace of Versailles, actually, Rach, because they haven't had a royal family there for years and years and years, but people still visit it. I think it's more synonymous. It's more of a landmark now rather than needing to fulfill some kind of extra part of the monarch's life, as in that's the king's house. So yeah, I don't know. What are you feeling about what I've said?
I do agree with you in the sense that for example, a lot of people, when you think of London, people want to visit Buckingham Palace because they think of the royal family. And that's one of the main draws when a tourist comes here. But I think if that is the case, if nobody's living there full time now, then open it up all year round. We know that it's, like you said, it's a business place for holding investitures. They have the state dinners there. They also hold weekly audiences there. Special occasions. Obviously, we've got Troop in the Colour, for example. But I just don't see that big building, and we're spending millions and millions of pounds renovating it. Then it should be open to the public all year round, especially because Buckingham Palace falls under the Royal Collection Trust, which is a charity. So a lot of people think that the royal family own Buckingham Palace, and they don't. It is actually owned by the state because the king is head of state. That's why it's the official residence of the monarch.
Yeah, the
So
Crown Estate, isn't it?
yeah,
Yeah.
I think if that is the case, then open it up all year round and get more people enjoying it and getting to see more rooms, because we've been there so many times, Shell. There's only a certain amount of rooms that are open. They've recently reopened the East Wing, which we'd love to go and see eventually. Unfortunately, we couldn't get tickets this year. But I did think that when the king came into his role, that over time more would be open to the public. And I think if it's open all year round, how much more money that would raise for the trust.
I think it's more of a security thing, because if the king is there working, then there might then pose a more of a security threat if they have people coming in and out. So if that's the case, then it wouldn't necessarily, if they were to open it up, I assume that that would also mean that the king would no longer use that as an official place of work. That's just me with my security head on. Whether that's true or not, I'm not quite sure. But I will say this, and I wrote this down because I wanted to get it right. The resurfacing of Buckingham Palace started in April 2017 and will be complete in 2027. So I really do believe if there is going to be a change and the king does live in Buckingham Palace, it probably will be when those resurfacing parts of Buckingham Palace have completely finished. But then that might not be the case, right?
Yeah, and I think it's interesting to think about when William becomes king, because I personally can't see him and his family moving into Buckingham Palace. We know that they have their place in Windsor, they also have their place in Norfolk. So I think for them, their home base now is Windsor. And again, they're very close to Windsor Castle. So I could see that over the years becoming more of the royal hub, so to speak.
Yeah, definitely. I also wanted to say that you did mention earlier that Queen Victoria started the trend of living in Buckingham Palace, but we've also had King Edward, we've had King George King George V, King George VI, and also Queen Elizabeth II. So if he doesn't live in Buckingham Palace, the king is really going to buck a trend. Really, he's going to like completely stop that. And I don't know, I quite like that rebellious side if that is the case, because I think we've seen from The Crown, and we know that The Crown isn't verbatim, it is a TV show, but there was a lot of talk about the monarch has to live at Buckingham Palace. And there was from what we see from The Crown anyway, there was a big, I would say, pressure on Queen Elizabeth II to live at Buckingham Palace. So if that is the case and the king doesn't choose to live there after the resurfacing, then I'm all for that. I'm like, yes, go King Charles.
I think as well, times have changed, like socially as well. It's very different to when the Queen became Queen in the 1950s. We're living in like quite a different world now. So it does, I can see why the king doesn't live there. But when you think about how close, I mean, the private apartments where they actually live and reside aren't actually near to where the visitors are every day. So the places where they obviously hold their investitures, that's not, you can, as a member of the public, when it's open, you can visit that room, you can go into certain rooms that you would normally typically see the king in when he is at certain events and audiences. So it doesn't, in that sense, I get what you're saying about security, but they're not actually living where the public would be, for example.
Yeah, and actually on that point, I think I'm kind of tracking back on that actually with what I'm saying, because with Kensington Palace, for instance, that's open like I'm guessing nearly all year round, and the royal residences, you can actually see them from where you are in the garden. So yeah, maybe that is not as much of a point as I'm thinking in my head. So, royal community, what do you think? Do you think the king or a monarch in general should be living in Buckingham Palace as the landmark of the British royal family? What are your thoughts? Let us know in the comments below.
Yeah, don't forget to subscribe, because we love talking to you and answering questions like this, because this is actually one of the questions that came from one of our royal community members. So thank you very much for sending in your questions. So if you have any other questions, again, leave them in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe and like the video, and share it with anyone else that loves the royals just as much as we do.
Yeah, we shall be doing a few more of these questions of the week. So stay tuned, and thank you so much for watching.